Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to an unboxing for Boblin's Rebellion. This is by Phase Shift Games. It's in the same universe as the Dungeon Drop games by them, as well as their other little side expansions. And that we get to play as one of the characters from the game, Boblin. It is a 1 to 4 player game, about 40 minutes, 8 plus. Has the same size box as the Dungeon Drop game, so if you do pick it up, you can stick it in there with the other games you have in there. There's also, I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but they have their card game, their Tavern Tales game. Same size box, same universe. So there's some different pictures on there, some really neat artwork. So there's one of the archer character from the game. There's some boblins and some ogres. There's another one of the pictures. There's the dwarf or the miner. Says, help Boblin train an army of stalkers, stabbers, slingers, sparkers, sparkers, and screamers in an attempt to overthrow the evil dungeon overlords once and for all. It's time to train your goblins and take back the dungeon. So this is a resource management game. So you have the rest of the box here. Has a lot of cards, 95 cards, bunch of goblin cubes, troll cubes, some player books. It's up to 4 players. Competing against each other. So even though you're all trying to technically overthrow the rebellion and have the rebellion, you are playing against each other to see who can do it the quickest or the better. Here's some more fun pictures. I just want to show you all these are really, really cool artwork. So there we go. Yeah, so what we're going to get in the game is you're going to get 4 of these player boards, which are going to be double-sided, so they flip open. And they have basically, not necessarily easy and hard. It's regular mode, and then one with goblins in there, or ogres in there, in case you want to play it with something a little bit more difficult or more challenging. But yes, it's a thing there. And we'll go over what all the different symbols and all that stuff means. And then we have a bunch of dungeon cards. So we have the mines. So they're all going to have all these different symbols, and we'll jump into that in a minute. But there's the back of the mines cards, which are the brown. We will have the blue cards, which are your ice taverns. And then we will have red, which is your volcano layer. I'm not sure if that's exactly what they're all called off the top of my head. The 4th set of cards we'll have are allies. These are your allies we've seen in the Dungeon Drop game. I think it's only the ones from the core set. It's not some of the Kickstarter expansions or promo characters. So it's kind of cool because they could potentially add them. Then we get a bag with a bunch of the blocks, which are the same blocks from the Dungeon Drop game. So there's a bunch of goblins and a bunch of, I keep wanting to call them ogres. I think they're orcs. Trolls. I'm wrong on both accounts. So these are the printed ones. So if you bought the original Dungeon Drop game, you just got the colored cubes. The Kickstarter and some of the later promotional stuff, they did print faces on them. So we're going to get some of these with faces printed on them. It's just really cool. They just help to serve so you can see which is which, help tell them apart to a little bit different colors. And then, of course, we have our rule book. We have all our different iconography on the back. It's just different stuff showing all the different trading goblins, different symbols. So before we jump into how the game works, what do you do to win? It says as soon as a player increases their fame to 27 and beyond, they win the game immediately. That's it, really. No tiebreaker needed. You lead the most effective goblin rebellion. Well done. So your goal is to get on your player board. The bottom here is 27 victory points. So it laps around 14 back to 27. That is your main goal. How are we going to do that? So how to play. Players take turns clockwise around the table. On your turn, you'll take 2 of the following actions in any order. You may take the same action more than once per turn. Recruit, add new sticklers or screamer goblins to your goblin campaign board. Scout, search the dungeon deck for a new room to conquer. Conquer, claim a face-up room card in the center of the table. Or exploit, activate one of your room card effects. And then they do have 2 other ones, kind of highlighters. Befriend, not used during your first game. Claim a face-up hero card. So if you decide to add the hero expansion, or like, I guess a little add-on, you can do that. Or defeat a guard. Remove all troll cards in your goblin campaign board. So those 2 are additional ones that you can add add extra to the game if you want to change up how the game works. Some actions will grant you additional actions will work in the exact same manner. Some actions will grant you fame points. Move your goblin cube up on your fame track on your goblin camp board. Once you're done with your actions, it's the next player's turn. As soon as a player reaches 27 fame, they immediately win. So it's kind of neat because it's not at the end of the turn or each other player gets an extra round. So you really have to be kind of paying attention to where people are on their board. So I'm going to pull up here really quick. We're going to look at, I'm going to kind of look at the player board here. I'm going to grab a second easel here for this because it is a foldy board. And this is your basic board. It's going to show you what you get to do. So it's showing up here on your turn, you have 2 actions, which are these purple little starbursts. Then you can kind of tell, let me zoom this in a little bit. If you color the purple cube, there's a little purple side, a little starburst in here. That is showing your 3 different actions for the turn. At the bottom here, we have the recruit, either gain 3 regular goblins, or either 3 goblins, the sticklers over here, or gain 2 screamers. And they're kind of showing off by their pictures. So sticklers are kind of your basic little goblin cubes, and then the sticklers will work the same. Now, they're all going to have the same faces. So as I earn these, you'll put them on the little spaces over here to show that you have them active. So if I unlock this guy, I hit screamers, I'll put him over in the screamer spot. Now, you notice there's only so many spaces for so many, so you're going to have to spend them turn after turn. Now, these cubes are only pictures on 2 sides. So, regardless, this is because if you drop them in the dungeon, no matter what side they land on, there will always be at least one side face up. Or face out, so you can see the face. So that's your 2 options. The other 2 are very similar. They have this tri-colored square. And this is for the top ones for Conquer. So one goes to each color. We have brown for the caves, blue for the ice, red for the fiery volcano. And the Conqueror, it's going to let you claim one of the cards that's already up on the table. And the other one's going to let you do a scout. So you search the dungeon deck for a different room to conquer. By conquering them, you're going to pull the card over to your area. Now you get to interact with that card specifically. What's in the middle of the table, everyone just to look at it, they just see what's available for doing stuff. But once you conquer it, now it's in your area. You can interact with that and do various different things. So yeah, we're just going to read how these quick standard actions go. Recruit with 3 sticklers or 2 screamer goblins, or take goblin cubes from a central supply, place them on the appropriate spaces in your board. Goblin cubes can be placed in several different locations on your camp board. Well, a cube is in a stickler area, for example, it counts as a type of goblin and no other. Later on, maybe move to Sparkler, and at that point it counts as a sparkler. You do not have enough room for any new goblins. Take what you can, ignore excess. This is true anytime you gain new goblins. So, first action I gain 2 screamers. Second action I gain another 2. I'd only be able to get 3. The fourth one is lost. If for some reason a stickler becomes a stalker, I just move one of the cubes over. So eventually you're going to have to spend these, otherwise you're going to run out of room and you're just going to be wasting your actions. But shouldn't generally be too much of an issue. So Scout and Conquer are very similar. So Scouting, draw 3 cards face down from any one dungeon deck. You may choose and pay and conquer one of these rooms. Place the cards you do not conquer at the bottom of that card stack. And then to conquers, pay the cost of the card of any face-up room in the center of the table. Remove the specified goblin from your camp board, placing them back into your central supply. Place the card in the room in front of you and draw a new card from the deck to replace it. Place a goblin in the central supply, the leftmost space of the card's destruction track. So, the idea is you want to conquer these dungeons because then you gain more abilities. It'll let you either upgrade your guys to stalkers, swingers, stabbers, or sparklers, or gain you victory points or possibly other additional actions. And the question would be is why would I conquer versus just scouting? Because when you're conquering, so when we lay the board out, the board's going to look like this at the beginning of the game. Each player board, you have 3 set up at each time, and then you have your hero deck if you're playing with that. So if I'm just ignoring the heroes and I just have my 9 tiles out, I can see which 9 ones are out there. I know if I can afford them, how how many I can afford, and what they do. I have 9 options to do, as opposed to searching where I only have 3. And that's the big difference. I have 3 to choose from, So why would you ever scout? Because maybe you don't like what the abilities are out there. Maybe none of them have victory points, or none of them have victory points for what you have available. So for I know it's hard to tell in here, but this one here requires scabbers to gain victory points. And this one over here requires you paying another thing to gain victory points. And those are the only 2, and then this one over here requires, all 3 of these require victory points, but maybe you don't have those particular icons, to be able to require them. I have a lot of stalkers. Early on, I only have sticklers and screamers, and I want to get something that I can spend those on. That is why you might search particular for a deck. Or, maybe it's one of the other effects on there. So there's different options there on what you like to do. Then the last one we had was exploit. Activate one of your card's room effects. So activate one of your card's room effects, which is not listed on here because it's not part of your main actions. These are all free to do because they're in purple. But the other ones will have action costs, so they'll have something additional on there. So choose one of the action rows on one of your conquered rooms you have played in front of you. Most rooms have only one room, or one row. Play the action cost shown on the left side of the arrow to gain a reward. Some actions allow you to pay an increased cost denoted by a plus near the arrow. For increased rewards, this only takes one action to perform unless the cost was another action. Note the Ice Tavern cards have passive effects to work a little bit differently. And then finally, they also have destruction effects. After gaining rewards from the exploit action, as well as after triggering a passive effect, increase the destruction track on that room by moving the Goblin Cube the right space. As soon as you place the Goblin Cube on the X, the room is destroyed. You immediately gain the reward showing on the right of the destruction track. Flip the token face down. Flip the room face down and keep it to the side of your player. Destroyed rooms are used when you're playing the Hero's Help deck. So this gives every room a finite life cycle. So I'm going to grab one of the rooms and we're going to take a look at how those work now. So here we have one of our caverns, or our mine shaft, I guess as they're called. So up here it's going to cost me 2 goblins to be able to play it. So I'd have to have 2 sticklers in play. So my first action could be to purchase 3 sticklers, and then my second action could be to conquer this room for 2. And then when you conquer it, you put it in your area, and you put a stickler or a goblin down here. And this gives me 1, 2, 3 times I can use this card before it gives me a victory point. This, again, might also be a reason why maybe you want to pick something that has a longer destruction track so that you can activate its abilities more often. Maybe pick something with a short destruction track, use it once or twice, and then get the reward. So various options. Then the purple here, it's going to show its action cost. So it's going to cost me 1 stickler to gain 1 sparkler. So basically I'm going to take a stickler off, put him here to spend it to there. So I'll essentially just be moving my stickler from here down to my sparkler. Additionally, it says I can spend one of my slingers, the catapults, to gain 2 more sparklers. So if I need a lot of sparklers to maybe activate a different card, this might be a good card to use. But early on, I might only be able to do the first ability. I have to wait until later on to get that. But yeah, if you spent your first turn getting 3 sticklers, then a second action buying this, you wouldn't be able to perform anything else for your first turn. But then your second turn, you could use both actions to gain these, and then you get 1 step closer to gaining that victory point. Then there are some cards that have passive triggers. Check out one of the ice caverns here. So this one costs a screamer and a stickler. You spend, it's a passive trigger, so it has a stickler on here. It's going to give you a slinger, and then eventually it'll break down. You'll get a stabber out of it, so it just gets you an additional one. So how do passive effects work? Room cards in the Ice Tavern Dungeon track contain different types of effects. Passive effects do not require an exploit action. Instead, whenever their trigger is showing on the left side arrow occurs, you immediately gain the rewards once showing on the blah blah blah. You immediately gain the reward showing on the right side. Each pass effect only triggers once per action. So this is saying every time I gain a stalker, I get this ability. The pass effects also only trigger on your turn except when others indicated. So some of them might have these little neighbor icons, left or right. Just the same when another player conquers an Inferno Room or the red one, you gain either a stalker or a fame point. But also don't forget to increase that each time. So for this one, is every time I gain a stickler, I would gain an extra slinger instead. And there I have a bunch of various different ones like that. And then, so if I look at something like this one, so every time I gain one of the every time a neighbor gains a stabber, not me, I get a stabber as well. So a couple different icons like that. Yes, it's very interesting. So it's gonna like, depending on how you do stuff, you're gonna build up certain resources in different orders and do various stuff there. The destruction track can have a bunch of different stuff. You can have one like this, which is let's look at fire one just as a quick example. This one has pay anything, and then so here it has different actions. There's 4 different ones because you can see the difference is they're not connected by that purple. So this is saying I can pay 1 stabber to gain 1 resource. If I pay 2, now I can gain 2. If I pay 3, I can gain 4. If I pay 4, I can gain 7. Now, you can only have 4 at a time. So, I could, so technically you could pay, you only do your 2 actions. I could do 2 actions and gain 2. But I could just use 1 action to gain 2 this way. If I want to pay 1 action, 2 action, I can gain 3, but it'd make more sense to spend all 3 to do this. Same idea as I could pay 2 and 2 to gain 4, but it would make more sense to use 1 action to pay all 4 to gain 7. But when this blows up, you gain your extra action. So it might be viable to maybe spend 2, if you really need an extra action for something else, you could always spend your stuff a little bit differently. But yeah, so that's the basis of how all that works. There's really not too much to go over. So quick game setup is just shuffle the dungeon decks and the optional hero deck, place each one face down the center of the table, draw 3 rooms. If not playing with heroes help, just put it in the box, don't use it. Place all the goblin trophies in separate piles, not playing with terrible trolls, just put them in the box. Give each player a goblin campaign board, and we'll look at the other side in just a moment to see how that works. Each player places a goblin cube on the 0 on their fame track. The player most really accidentally destroyed something goes first. The player that places a goblin cube on the stickler area of their goblin campaign board. So you get to start with 1. The second player gets 2. The third player gets 3, and the fourth player gets 4. So as you go on, so everyone gets to start with at least 1 stickler in play, which is why you also have 5. But then as you go later in the game, turns you get more, but that's to kind of give you a little extra advantage from everyone else getting to start earlier than you, since you don't play extra. Alright, then the last couple of things in here before we look at each individual card is Heroes Help. So this is the other additional mode that you can play as. We have these hero cards. The Play with Heroes module, you will enlist legendary heroes to help aid your cause. Place additional hero help deck center in the face table. Deal 3 out just like dungeon decks. Befriend action. Pay the cost of the 2 destroyed room cards to befriend heroes in the center of the table. Placing that hero card in front of you, drawing a new card in the hero's box to replace it. Immediately gain the number of fame indicated in the upper corners. So, if we look at our Draglicking, so this is going to cost 2 rooms of any color, but they're not the same. So it can be a red and blue, it can be a blue and brown, a red and brown, but it can't be 2 blue, it can't be 2 red. So this is the thing, is the heroes are kind of a little bit, I don't want to say more powerful, they're going to give different perspectives, different abilities. They don't get destroyed like rooms do, but you had to destroy a few rooms to gain them. So they're not going to be available on turn 1. They're going to take a couple of turns to activate. So it might also be the difference between if I have something like this room that has 4, do I focus on just destroying this to help buy a hero, or do I try and just destroy this one right away to gain that? So you might choose your actions differently on how quickly you want to destroy a certain colored room to get that. And then immediately, he doesn't have any fame up in the top corner, but someone like him does. So a human would automatically give you an extra 2 fame. So as most heroes have passive effects just like the Ice Tavern Room, except they have no destruction track. These effects are permanent. So for his example, is going to say when a room is destroyed, you gain 2 actions. Very easy, very simple, very nice. As another one is we have just a quick show as we have the fairy. Says whenever you take an action, you get to switch. You may change one train goblin to a different type. So what this lets you do is you could change one of your trained goblins, you could change a sparkler into a stabber, or a stabber into a swinger. So yeah, lets you swap some of them around. They have some different options like that as well. Yeah, and we'll look at each one of the different effects. The rule book here does list little notes for each one, just in case you can't remember exactly how they work, which is very helpful. The other game module we have is Terrible Trolls. It says when play with this module, fearsome troll guardians will invade your goblin camp and further mess up your plans. You'll use larger troll cubes and then flip on the flip side of your campaign board. Whenever you gain fame, if you reach or pass one of the spaces depicting a troll guardian, 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20, you may must immediately place a troll from a supply into one of your spots indicated does not already have a troll. Note you may receive multiple trolls during the same action if you reach multiple spaces. You may place trolls and immediately introduce appalling penalties. So if we flip our board over, now you're going to see we have these big trolls in there. Big troll spaces. So they're going to add some blocking spots on there. And it shows on the bottom of the 4, 8, 12 little troll faces where that stuff appears. You're also going to notice a couple things on this side. So we have whenever you conquer an area, you also get it says plus for that. So we'll look at what that means. Just a sec. We have search. Here's a regular one. But it has pay 1 to remove goblins, gain 2 fame, and we also have the destroying the room for the heroes. Now the hero one is not listed on the regular side. It does not mean that you can't play with it on there. So here's one of our goblins. So if I get this and I place it here on the, I'm going to lay this down a little bit, be a little bit easier to do. I place this on the screamer. It covers up 2 of those spots. And the same thing on your train one. Depending on where you put it, it's going to cover up 2 spots on every single one of these. That means you cannot play any of your goblins there. And it actually slows down your gameplay. And then if you put one here, it's going to actually increase your buying cost from ones on there by 1. Yeah, so you're going to have some different extra effects. They're basically on there to hinder your game. Yeah, so your conquer action costs 1 more stickler as long as there's a goblin there. Your destruction bonuses are negated. So if that's on this one here, you don't get the destruction bonus. You're going to definitely want to get rid of that. Otherwise, you're not going to get those. 2 for your screamers, or this will reduce 2. You can defeat a guardian by paying 1 trained goblin. So it has to be a trained one, which are these 4 over here. They have like the black square around them. Remove 1 troll card on your camp board, return to center apply immediately, removing the related penalty. This also earns you 2 fame. So cool. So that's basically how that works. It just makes the game a little bit more difficult because now you're occasionally have penalties that can get there. And now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots you can gain them. There are 4, 5, 6, 7 spots. So even if you, for some reason, go all the way past 20 and you haven't removed a single troll, you won't ever have every single spot covered up. So you just might have to determine what you can afford, maybe how you're playing the game. Maybe you can afford to have 2 less of these, 2 less of those, depending on what rooms you've been buying or collecting. If you ever have to put a troll down and you had 3 screamers, you can immediately lose those other 2 screamers, though. The last little mode is just there's also a solo mode. I'm not going to go into too much. I'll hold it here in case you want to do it, but it's basically the same idea. Game starts as normal, with one stickler goblin and discard 3 cards from each deck. Playing the normal multiplayer, adding a new rule. At the end of each of your turns, discard the rightmost face-up card in each room. All of the rooms on the right, draw a new deck. You immediately win if you use 27th phase. You lose if you cannot draw a room card from the dungeon deck when needed. So more or less what's going to happen is now you're playing a time game. Instead of playing against other players racing for their fame points, you are just playing against every turn. Dungeons are going to start disappearing. So that way you have to kind of keep an eye on which ones. If you buy too many of the same color, they're going to go away that way. There are some advanced effects in here. So we kind of looked at some of these earlier. What says like here, it says if you pay 1, you have the plus to get this additional thing. Paying extra action to get that. Well, so you stabber, you get an additional action. But you only get it once per turn. When you player, your left or right plays 1, you get that effect. Pay 1 to get 1. Alternate can pay more to get each one of those. We looked over that one. Then, or this one's pay 3 trained goblins of any type to gain 2 fame, plus 2 if each was a different type, or, like this one says, pay any 1. 3 trained goblins gain 4 fame, minus 1 for each swinger. So sometimes you get less if you pay a certain kind, but maybe it's worth it. Get 3 at least, you know. And then here's all our different icons on the back again. Most of them are pretty there. So you have conquer action, activation cost, increase or decrease your room's destruction track, so that might happen as well. Cancel effect not equal. When any player does it, if it has all 4 arrows, or just when a neighbor does it. If you're only playing a 2-player game, everyone's obviously your neighbor, regardless. Mineshaft, I didn't call it Inferno Room, I was calling it Fire Room. Alright, so that's the basis of the game. So we are going to go ahead and just take a look at all the cards really quick. So one last thing I want to point out before we jump into that is, down here, just a bonus cubes. We have provided 10 extra goblin cubes and 4 extra troll cubes you can use with dungeon drop. So if you, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, these have faces. If you bought the non-Kickstarter version or deluxe version of dungeon drop, you could swap these out and then still have enough to keep playing this game, so you don't have to try and share them between 2 games. Just wanted to point that out really quick. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and look at the Mineshaft cards. And I'm not going to go too much into every single one of them. We can kind of see what they do here. Like you pay 1 at the top. So you pay 2 Boblins to gain 2 of these Stalkers. Otherwise, you can get a Stabber at the end. And they're all going to be very different. I don't know how often they repeat or how much the same overlap there are from each game. This one lets you pay a Screamer to get some extra. So this is going to be a very good first turn action, right? You already start with at least 1 Goblin, right? You pay this, you know, your first action, you could conquer this room. Your second action, you wouldn't actually be able to have any of these yet, but you could pay 1 action to gain that, and then your next turn, you're already ready to go and start earning a bunch of upgraded guys. But I think all of the costs are always your sticklers, your basic guys. But here, just watch these so far. Just pay 2, gain some extra units. So we have some that gain you some sparklers. We have some that gain you a couple different ones. Some stabbers. Paying 1 screamer instead of 2 sticklers to gain them. Kind of seems to be the theme of the Mineshaft. There's some like this. Then you do the plus. Pay 1 stickler plus 1 other type to gain some additional units. We have some to do each one of them. Pay an extra action. So then you only have to spend a unit to do it, which is kind of nice. Could be very, again, helpful earlier on, because then you could just spend actions. Some of these are also just getting you additional ones. So like this card might, if this is on the table, this ability might be good. You might not really care much about this, but also knowing this only happens twice. You're only able to do this action twice, and then you're going to lose this card. So some go a little bit longer. This one will get you a couple other different things. It could be, now again, this has the square on, like that black square on it, which match them. So those are all the trained ones. So I think anyone that has a question mark will always be any trained goblin. So it basically won't be the Screamer, which has the blue border, and it's kind of not quite square, like gem shaped, or it won't be one of the regular goblin faces. But yeah, these ones don't seem to have too many things. This gets you one or the other, so it gets you a little bit more variety. I think the mine shafts are kind of like, I think if you're kind of going down, they show them in the thing. It's like mine shaft, ice cave, and then Inferno should maybe kind of be like, these are like the simpler ones to do. They have the very straightforward effects. You know, pay this to gain this, pay this to gain this. So very simple. So those are our mine shafts. Then we are going to look at our ice caverns. So the ice caverns all have passive. I don't know if they all do. I think they all do. They all have passive effects in there. So these again are a little bit more expensive. So these guys are all now starting to cost screamers, where all the other ones only cost the goblins or the sticklers. But these are not passive effects. So these are being nice to gain some of these as well. Yeah, so another thing I also mentioned, this is one of the things that I kind of had to look up because I felt was a little bit I don't want to say misleading. It was missing from the rule book because it doesn't say that you can conquer as many rooms as you want and where to put them. So it does say, like, when you conquer a room, you put it next to, but, like, here it shows the play area. But there's nowhere in here that it says, like, you can conquer any number of rooms as you want. Obviously, I feel like you're going to be making actions, and most of these have 2, 3, at maybe a fourth action, so they're going to be probably disappearing quite quickly. But there's nothing that says that, like, oh, like, limit of, like, 4 rooms, you have to keep using. So there's, again, like, you could buy a room potentially every turn or every other turn, and there's nothing wrong. I have 10 rooms going, but then, of course, the more and more you have, the longer you keep buying rooms, the less time you're doing actions, means the less time you're getting your rewards. So I think it kind of works itself out. It's not an issue that way. I just wish there was something in the rule book that said it. We now are getting into the passive effects that say whenever your opponent's getting stuff. So now these can be kind of good and kind of bad. If you notice your opponent's buying a lot of stabbers, get this card. Then you don't have to be buying another card to get stabbers. So it can be very helpful. Same, they're kind of getting some of these. This or a victory point every time they gain one. This might again make your opponents decide, ooh, well, he has this card out. Can I afford to gain these? But eventually they're going to gain them, probably because they need to, and then you're going to gain. You know, it kind of like you have to kind of also things like that. I think make your opponents pay attention to your boards as well, which I think is a very good thing in these types of games. Because if it just gets to where I'm only doing my stuff and I'm not doing the other stuff, and then it's essentially 4 people more or less playing solo to see who gets to the end first, and you're not really playing against each other. So I like that little bit of interaction where it's not like I'm going over and messing with stuff on your board. I'm screwing up your strategy directly, but it is making you have to pay attention to what other players are doing. You have fun like this whenever someone's room gets destroyed. So some might take a little bit longer to kick off. But gaining that 1 extra victory point might be the difference. Just because your opponents will have to kind of keep an eye on what they're doing, what they're buying, what they're purchasing, because, I imagine you're not going to probably, generally, unless you get, like, a really good combo, not having, like, played through this, enough time to say for sure, but not to say, I don't know if you're going to get, like, more than a couple, like, 1 or 2 victory points every round, because you might get lucky and, like, complete, like, 2 or 3 of these, like one opponent might destroy their thing and you gain a point, and then you might destroy one on your turn, gain a point, or maybe gain 2 points in your turn. But I don't think anyone's going to be, like, generally pulling off, like, 5, 10 victory point combos in 1 turn. Especially because you only have 2 actions. Even if you do this, Like, passively, you gain one of these, you gain one action. You have to do something to do that, right? To gain one of those. So, even if you play one thing that actively, even if you trigger a bunch of these somehow, like even if something like this happened, your opponent plays a stabber, right? Then you gain a stabber. Use that stabber. Now you have a third action on your turn. Great, you're going to have 3 actions. I can see that maybe if you get lucky, you might be by the right cards. You might be able to use 4 actions. But even still, each action's probably at most only going to get you a victory point. So maybe, again, 4 victory points in a turn. So you can kind of just see what happens. But yeah, you could potentially pull off some big combos. So these ones are going to gain you a lot of... They're all passives. But they are going to gain you a bunch of... extra action points as well too, or victory points. Where the first one's only generally, the Mineshaft only got you, mostly use the main characters, the sticklers, and they gain you lots of the other guys. These guys are using some of the other ones, but they're also basing on your opponent's stuff. So here's every time they gain one of those, you're going to gain once again. It might limit to whether they buy one of these right away. Especially by the end of the game. Early on, might not be that big of a deal, because you might actually want the Goblin resource versus the victory points early on, just because you might need that to be able to do more stuff on your turn. But you get towards the end of the game, and you're getting down to, again, like 3-4 points away, your opponents might really have to be like, okay, well, if we buy one of these red cards, he's going to gain a victory point. So your other players have to be like, can we afford to buy one? You know, because it doesn't matter if he gains it on his turn or not, right? So very interesting. Then the last ones we have are the Inferno Volcanoes, Inferno Rooms. So these are going to be a little bit more, a little bit different. So let's say a lot of these, again, use the base types to pay for them. The Sticklers and some of the Screamers, but they have a lot of question marks on here too. It's like you pay for any of them, but they're going to get you a lot more victory points. So I think it's kind of like you're going to buy the Mine Shafts first to kind of start off, get your resources built up. Then you might buy a couple of the blue intermediate ones to like help get some more resources and victory points based on what your opponents are doing or what you're doing, passive stuff. So you have to keep using all your actions for that, and then you'll start buying the red ones to max out your victory points. And this is where you can definitely get a lot more, because right here you could gain 5 in a turn and then gain 6 or 7 with some like 1 or 2 other points. But again, this also costs you a lot more resource, a lot heavier resource to do. You have to have 2 trained units plus a Screamer, so you're not going to be pulling these off again on turn 1. Like this card, you could potentially buy. But you have to have 1 trained unit. So you have to at least, again, you don't start with trained units. You have to find another card to let you train something up. But once you do that, this isn't too hard to be able to pull off. Yeah, so we have this. I love this effect too. It's like where you can get 2, but you can get 1 extra point if they're not the same one. So it helps you if you're diversifying your trained units a bit. Same thing with some of these. This is definitely where you spend a bunch of your trained units to get a lot of it. What's that, 7 points right there? So dang, I was just saying, you're probably not going to get like a 10, 11, but that's just using the base cards, right? So dang, like yeah, buying these red ones could be a little bit trickier, but they're also generally going to cost you a lot more resource. So dang, if I do this and I get 7 of these, I'm probably not going to necessarily be able to pull it off unless I've been saving up my resources. Now technically, I could save up this one, buy this one, save up till I have 4 of these. You know, I could do both of these in a turn and gain 14 for each action, right? But then again, that's, 14, that's a lot. That's, you know, over half of my total in 1 turn. But the time it would take you to get 4 sparklers and 4 slingers, you know, again, like something like this. If you're doing this, you have to pay this. Like that's 4 actions to get that. If you happen to get some swingers, you could do it and spend both of these, and you could get 3 in an action. Great. but you have to like build up all them resources. So it's going to take you several turns of not doing a whole lot of other things. So someone could be gaining like 1 point here, 1 point there, 1 point there, in the time you're taking 4 turns to gain 7. So yeah, there's kind of that. So here's one: if you play -1 for every sooner you place, if you're only focusing on those, this isn't a good card. It kind of makes it interesting too. So you could purchase these ones, but they're not going to be good if you're only going for certain kinds. But it might be worth spending 3 and one of them's a sneak and then gaining 3 points. It's better than 0, right? Alright, then we have some here. Just cost your train guys. Again, they're gonna get you your victory points. Like the other ones don't get you them as often or as many. But these ones also are going to take a lot more resources to gain. Yes, it's a very interesting strategy. And again, I don't think there's a correct right or wrong way. Could you win the entire game just buying brown cards? Possibly, the mine shafts. But it's going to be a lot harder because there's a lot less victory points on there, but you might try and go through more of them. I think you're going to have to buy multiple colors to be able to win. Now, the one thing I do wish is I do like the Goblin or the Troll expansion. I think it's a really neat little module added on there. It would be kind of neat if they almost had that been like a secondary like mini expansion that was adding a separate box and maybe added like I don't remember how many of each one of these room cards there are. 27 of each. So it would have been kind of neat if they would have added like 5 or 6 or something, just a couple extra ones in there that would have had like a troll symbol on there. That would have maybe been like, if you got this, it'd be weird to do it because then you'd be affecting the other players, either maybe affecting them by putting a troll on one of theirs, or the other way around would be like you have to put a troll on one of yours, and maybe you can't get rid of that card until you can't use that effect. But then you'd have to have a way to get trolls more often. Maybe like sometimes defeating it or maybe gaining a point would get you a troll. So maybe I might get like spend cheaper, get higher victory points, but I have to gain a troll, and that would maybe offset that. That might have been some neat little things. Maybe they'll do like a promo expansion in the future for it. All right, we're gonna look at our heroes quick. We have the fairies, so they all have the same cost up on the top. I also hope that they come out with something with the rest of the characters. It'd be really cool. Yeah, so the fairy says, I'm going to just kind of read off of the guide here about it. It says, once per turn, you may change one train goblin to a different train goblin. And these are passive, so it lets you just do it each turn, which is very helpful. The Dragon King says, this is the only hero with an action rather than a passive action. So you have to spend an action to do it, but spend 1 destroy room to gain 2 additional actions. So you're basically gaining 1 action for doing it, but the thing would be is that this would also trigger anytime you destroy anything that ever said destroy an action card, which I know we had some that did that. It might trigger some other cards that do that. But basically you're netting 1 additional action. You have to spend 1, but you have to spend 1 of your rooms to do it. The human here says, when you take an action to conquer an ice caverns, so action to get an ice cavern, you may increase or decrease 1 of your destruction tracks. So increase, now obviously you get your reward quicker. So something like this might be great to do it if you want to get that extra action quick. But again, you might also want to decrease it so you can use that, potentially use that victory point gain a third time, which would be kind of cool. The dwarf says, whenever any player destroys an ice cavern room, gain 1 trained goblin. So now this would definitely work with your Dragon King, right? You destroy any, it's just spend your destroyed room, so that's the same thing. So once you finally destroy it, it lets you get someone. So you kind of just sit there and waits till someone destroys something. Anytime a red one is destroyed, gain with the Isham, you gain 2 sticklers. Anytime a brown one or a mine shaft, you gain a victory point with the gnome. The Hawkman says anytime any player explores, there's a scout action, gain a trained goblin of your choice. The High Elf says whenever you conquer an Inferno, gain a victory point. So the Sleth says whenever you gain a trained goblin, gain a Screamer goblin as well. The Wood Elf, so whenever you conquer a mine shaft, it costs 2 less goblins to do it. Yeah, so it's kind of 2 less sticklers, so I can make some of them free. But it's only going to work, again, on ones that cost goblins. Which I think all the mine shops do. So we have Stone King. When you destroy 2 rooms during the same turn, gain 4 fame. It's a little bit trickier to do, but definitely a good reward for it. The Gear Golem. Whenever you take 2 conquer actions during the same turn, gain 2 fame. So it rewards you for doing the same thing twice. We have the Half Orc. So this is kind of a neat one because he says when you have 4 more trolls in your goblin camp, gain 1 extra action during those turns. So if you let your trolls build up, he'll actually gain the bonus. And this is what I kind of like when I said like the troll thing. I wish I had a couple other cards that something else that affected that troll module. Be kind of neat. And then the last one is Shadow Folk. It says when you gain 6 trained goblins during the same turn, gain 3 fame. It's kind of cool. And these guys, unlike the search action, you don't get to go look for them. They're just out on the board, so you only have 3 options, so someone has to buy one before you can do something else, but it's always going to cost 2 rooms. Again, this would be kind of neat if they made promos that had, like, maybe a set of promos that's like one guy costs 2 blue, one guy costs 2 red, one guy costs 2 brown. Make them a little bit harder to get. Maybe add some additional costs, like maybe one guy's like sacrifice 2 trolls, you know, or something like you have to have 2 trolls on your board or something to pay for them. Like, that made it kind of interesting, too. Alright, so that's what we have for... I knocked over all the cards. Boblin's Rebellion. Yeah, so a little kind of resource management game. Very, very easy, I think, to play and learn. It's not a lot of different resources, which I think makes it interesting. Yes, there's 5 or 6 different goblin types. But it's very easy because I think it's like you're moving this one to there, moving this. I think it might be a little bit easier for some people to understand versus some of the other ones where it's like you have different types of resources. I'm not going to specifically know the exact name of them. I think something like Catan where you have like wool, then wood, then, you know, like ore or whatever. Where it's so different types, but again, it doesn't matter because it could just simply be like resource 1, 2, 3, 4, and this could be the same thing. And it works the same way, but I think this might be a little bit easier for some people to understand. Again, it would have been kind of neat if they would have had little wooden blocks that matched each picture, and then you had your pictures could match each picture. But again, in the end, it doesn't really matter because the fact is they're representing one is replacing the other. Alright, so the last thing I did want to show off here, this is not part of it, but Basic does sell sleeves of protection for their card games of this size. They're 50 sleeves, 29 by 29, 100 micron transparent sleeves. So it's saying there's 1 for Dungeon Drop, 2 for Drop 2 Deep, which is the expansion, and 1 for Drop Drive, which is their space version of the game. But they do not list this on these packs only because this came out beforehand. But this will allow you to sleeve all of your cards. But how many are you going to need? You have 95 game cards, which are your rooms, 70... So you have 95, so you have to have 2 packs of these to be able to sleeve everything. You have 5 left over. And how well do they fit? Well, I have a pack here that I've opened already from one of the previous games. So if we grab one of these, slip it in there very nicely. Now, are you definitely going to need to sleeve these cards? Nope, probably not. One upside about sleeving is because it helps for shuffling reasons, so you're not you know, maybe dingy up the edges a little bit. That's always a nice thing to have. The other nice thing might be just so, like, for whatever reason, the wooden blocks don't potentially scratch it, or if you have gamers that might have dirty hands or something, they don't get in there. And they fit in there nicely sleeved. And if we put all the cards in there, just without sleeves, it only takes up about not even half. So when you actually get them sleeves, it's going to take up probably about half. You throw the boards in there, instruction book, and then you just got your two little badges in there. So it should fit in there pretty darn snug. These guys might maybe have to like stack up a little bit once you have them all sleeved, but it shouldn't be too bad. Alright, that is what we have for Boblin's Revenge. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Check out the Drop Dry games if you like the little system. All the other different phase shift games. See you guys later. Bye.